So you want a super fast tank. What about one that can deal an inordinate amount of damage, can go 90 kilometers an hour if kitted out correctly, and also is a tier 6 seal clubber? Well, of course today's video is looking at the Snakebite and how maybe you can pick up this tank and dominate even tier 7s and tier 8s with a tank that is just outrageously good and fast and can just basically outwit, outskill and outgun your opponents pretty easily and with a ton of fun, because ultimately a lot of the time in a world of tanks we can pick up a vehicle knowing that it is very good, but it isn't necessarily very fun to play, whereas the Snakebite is both, making a combined mixture that is horrible for pretty much everyone that you'll be coming up against. Now you can see here we're bouncing off a Tiger with standard ammunition, so unfortunately it's one of those premiums that require you to fire premium. So it's super annoying to have to play, I guess, but yeah, you can literally deal 700 damage in a minuscule amount of time. It's a pea shooter, and you can see here we're going after tracking the M6 on the enemy team. Now I'm firing premium ammunition at him, no need for that, so we swap back to standard ammunition to keep him tracked. Now I'm hoping I can get some assistance damage, and we just continually keep firing at this track, hoping that we'll be able to A, pen it, or just get some assistance. But either way, we kind of forget that there's no one over there to actually really help us out, and we're not going to be able to pen him from that sort of angle. So instead, we focus on where the majority of the enemies are. So I'm here up against the P43, decide to load premium because standard ammunition's terrible on this tank. So we just continually lock down the track of the P43. He obviously finds his repair kit finally, but it's way too late for him to really make any real impact. Now, enemy team has stopped pushing on this side after being absolutely destroyed, so instead we push back to our little position over here. Now there's not a lot of speed within this replay until the final moments, but it is a very speedy replay. But the next replay we have is focused on the speed aspect of the Snakebite, whereas this one's more about the damage potential and how it can even come up against tier 7s and stuff like that in the game. But yeah, so far 1,300 damage done. And you can see here the hidden ability of the Snakebite remaining unspotted. It is a light tank after all. Now it's essentially a Cromwell that can go 90 kilometers an hour, so a souped up version of the standard Cromwell that suffers in the penetration department. So that is the rundown of this vehicle, and hopefully that's given you a little bit of an overview. Now in terms of my setup in this tank, we are not running it as the full kind of speed boost mode that you can with this, allowing you to go up to 90 kilometers an hour, but it is entirely possible for you to do that, but we don't really want that within this game. Now for some reason Jakob here decides he's just going to push around the team for absolutely no reason, but yeah, of course, happy player going around in World of Tanks. But either way, we can farm up these tanks here, the Hammer, and we'll just keep ploughing rounds into the tracks. Now he's locked down. Unfortunately for the Hammer, it's game over. Well, kind of unfortunately for him, very, very fortunately for me. The P40 or the Caro here, the tier 7 heavy tank-esque thing from the Italian line, tries to push up and deal some damage, but unfortunately for him it's not going to end up very well. We find the IS-2 on the enemy team is actually sat out, so we're going to pen his Cupola obviously, because why wouldn't you use the good accuracy by fully aiming on this tank? And then at this point it's just time to go. Why faff around when you can just YOLO at the end? The team have steamrolled the enemy opponents, but because of the speed of the Snakebite, you're able to actually farm so much damage against your opponents. Now unfortunately we hit the rock, and we would have been able to get way more damage in this game than we actually did if we didn't crash into that rock, since the IS got 2 shots off towards the Leo there, where we could have got a few more. Now the heavy tank on the enemy team, which is a KV-85, gets spotted started over here, so let's make our way all the way over there using the speed of this tank. It's literally only 5 minutes in, and we've basically destroyed the opponents. It's 11 tanks against 3, so they're not going to be able to come out with a victory, to be honest. And the setter actually gets spotted, or Stinger even, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's just like camping down here, he's kind of given up or whatever. But either way, we come down and give him a little bit of a sausage sandwich treatment, and we're just kind of pumping him now and trying to get some extra damage, and then we try and move towards the KV-85, but we don't manage to do that. But so far, 3,744 damage in probably one of the easiest games of my life, and still coming out with a brilliant result nonetheless. The Black Prince on the enemy team gets taken out, but yeah, what an easy result, and that is what the Snakebite does so well. And I'm sure that if you've played it, I'll be interested to see what you have to say in the comment section down below. But 2,165 base experience, 3 kills, 3,744 damage, 500 assist, 460,000 silver, because the operation that Wargaming so-called add into the game is completely well and balanced. But yeah, let's jump into the next replay, which is a little bit different to the damage dealing of this one. So our next replay is Canals, and once again in a tier 7 matchup, and this is probably the best matchup you can come up against, I would say, in terms of being able to do damage whilst also not be like completely irrelevant to the point where like your spotting potential in the Snakebite is awful when you're coming up against tier 8 light tanks. So it's a nice kind of happy medium with this vehicle. So that's what I always enjoy about playing the Snakebite, is that you're competitive in most matchups and you can have an impact. It just becomes a little bit annoying when you are in those tier 8 games, but nonetheless, you can see here the T-34 on the enemy team pushing up. Unfortunately for him, it was not a good idea. He's lost like, what, 70% of his health already. The enemy team, for some reason, are YOLO wagoning. We avoid the shells here, and we manage to get up behind this ridge. So this is a nice early damage game spot, which you can use if you are interested in kind of getting away with getting some early damage off on some opponents. Now the T50-2, which is a brilliant tier 6 light tank as well, that I'm super fun to play as well, is of course doing the similar sort of YOLO strategy at the beginning, but unfortunately for him, he is not able to hit his shots against us, but we certainly are. Now we've picked up 500 damage early on, got a little bit of assistance. Now granted, the Snakebite isn't the best assistance tank that you can have in the game, mainly because of the view range slash concealment. It doesn't get brilliant concealment. At the end of the day, this is a kind of a medium tank essentially, so you can't really expect a whole deal in terms of its spotting capability, but it's not going to get out spotted is what I'm trying to say. You just won't remain undetected that often. Now we get behind the T25/2. We could have played this slightly smarter. I really did not need to take the risk of getting hit by the T25, but nonetheless we can kind of move on and hopefully avoid taking any shells in the next kind of a couple of minutes. Now you're seeing me take the kind of fuel boost in this, so this is with the top speed mode that you can possibly get. We're running advanced power terrain, which is the only speed boost equipment you can get. You can't actually use the other speed boost point. In doing so, we're actually nullifying the fact that we have the vertical stabilizers. So we swapped out vertical stabilizers, allowing us to have this speed boost equipment and to max out the tank. We also had the addition of a heavy tank spool liner, because you are a Cromwell, which is a fairly heavy medium for tier 6, and so I was hoping that I could ram some light tanks, things like the French tier 6 AMX-12T and stuff like that. Unfortunately it didn't really come about, so I definitely wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to have like outrageous games all of the time or be like super consistent, but at the end of the day it's supposed to be fun to play, so sometimes you do have to take the least or less of a competitive build if you're just interested in having some fun, which I think a lot of people forget about order tanks. There's a lot of this kind of talking like, oh, I need to get my stats up or whatever, when at the end of the day the only person that really cares about them is yourself. So And that's coming from someone that, you know, used to care about statistics and that sort of thing. I just feel like it detracts from the actual game. It ends up being that you get more annoyed about playing the game because you're constantly worrying about how your stats might have gone down after one game, which at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter at all. And yeah, like I said, no one else actually cares as much as you do, so I wouldn't worry about it at all if you don't end up having like ridiculous stats or whatever. But nonetheless, in this game we're coming up against the KV-1. Obviously the KV-1 doesn't appear like he knows what he's doing. Maybe he's a new player or something, but he keeps missing us. He didn't even get a single shot off on us, so we'll take it. Artillery misses us narrowly, and of course you are an artillery magnet if you play this thing, so just be aware of that. But we're pushing now towards the Skullcap, I believe it is, or somewhere in that region. Yeah, it is the Skullcap, which is the mercenary with spaced armor everywhere. But either way, we're coming up from behind him. We're going to try and track him. It doesn't actually happen, but we go for the lower plate, and of course we low roll, and then we finish him off anyway because he does rush his shot, doesn't manage to get us. But done 2,300 damage with 700 assist, and then we find the M41 on the enemy team, who's pushed up, being pretty aggressive. He's going full TD mode. But this is where the kind of vertical stabilizers and not having them can be a little bit annoying, because it's way harder to actually consistently hit on the move. So just take vertical stabilizers if you ever play this. But if you are playing other light tanks, you know, there is potential to use different ones. It's just that the dispersion on the Snakebite is not very good at all. Since I guess Wargaming were trying to balance it in some way, but you know, being able to do 90 kilometers an hour is not particularly that balanced in my opinion anyway. But you can see us actually finally getting up to the top speed limits in this game, 85 there. But of course you can continue going further than that. Now the IS-2 on the enemy team is kind of hoping he'll be able to take me out, get a little bit more damage, but unfortunately for him it's not going to be the case, and we secure the victory once again in a very fast fashion, and that is what the Snakebite's all about. So a really quick video, and that's mainly just because of the speed of the replays. We come up with 2,100 base experience again. We actually get a top gun within this, so 3,034 damage as well, 700 assists, 3,700 combined. Really good game, enjoyed playing it entirely. And hopefully you guys are actually going to jump in and play the Snakebite as well. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check out the gameplay and tank reviews playlist with tons of other vehicles, much like the Snakebite and tier 10s and other low tier vehicles as well. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I hope you join me in the next one. Goodbye.